Can a hot home seller's market be bad for sellers? Good afternoon. So I came across an article on Realtor.com and I wanted to go over it. It's three ways that the hot home selling market could be bad for home sellers. I got to thinking about that. That didn't make any sense to me, so I figured I'd go over it. And then when I was going over it, I found three other ways I thought in what I deal with every day that might also be bad for home sellers. So let's dive in and take a look. Here we go. It says 3 ways today's insane seller's market is actually bad for home sellers and how to survive it. So I thought that was interesting. The article's from July. It says home sellers have had a right to feel optimistic, even bullish about selling a house today. Demand is sky high, and with record low levels of homes for sale, hordes of eager beaver buyers will do just about anything to get their hands on your place. Interesting. So it says, curious about what dangers might be lurking amid all these cutthroat buyers battling to outbid one another for your house? Here are a few key things buyers are doing today that could cause problems for sellers and how you can sidestep these potential pitfalls. So number 1, home buyers are waiving the home inspection. So how could the home buyer waiving a home inspection be bad for this home seller? If home buyers discover an issue after they move in that requires extensive repairs, I think it's logical that in many cases, one of those phone calls the buyers would make is to an attorney to find out if they can pursue the seller to recoup some of the losses. This is particularly true if a home seller knew about an issue and didn't mention it to the buyer. In fact, most states require sellers to submit a seller disclosure revealing certain problems in the home's past, from flooding to pest infestations. Keep quiet or just forget to mention the problems and you could face some severe consequences. So the idea here is the buyer waives the home inspection and then they move into the house and there's something wrong with the house. Normally, if you have a home inspection or a home inspector before you buy the house, you know what the problems are. For the most part, let's just say maybe 80%. The rest you hope are covered on the disclosure. What seems to be happening in the marketplace is that people are waiving the home inspection to win the bidding war, and then they buy a house and there's a bunch of stuff wrong with it, and then they're stuck with it. So that's bad. And then it says, well, how would you fix that? It says, regardless of whether an inspection is happening or not, sellers must always be honest about known defects to the property that may impact value and disclose where appropriate. Yep, I agree with that. So I have no issue with number 1. Number 2, home buyers are waiving the appraisal contingency. It says another common safeguard buyers often rely on is home appraisal contingency. Well, how could that be bad for the sellers? It says waiving the appraisal can mean one of 2 things, and the difference between them is very important. Either the buyer has ample resources, meaning they have the shortfall in the bank account and no problem using it to overcome the low appraisal, or sometimes it can be more of a reckless gamble by the desperate buyer. So I see this in St. Louis a lot. People will write, without an appraisal contingency. They will get in a bidding war, and the money that they have to bring to the table when the house doesn't appraise is more than they have. And so they have to walk because they don't have a choice. They can't buy the house. So how could that be bad? Well, it's bad because the sellers now got to try and remarket their house. And anytime you have to sell a house again and again, as far as list it, the market looks at there's something wrong with this house. So for instance, a house that I have a neighborhood in Afton that I've sold some houses in, currently has gone under contract 3 times. And there must be something wrong. It's either not appraising or something, but it keeps coming back on the market. And then there's a stigma about that. Why does this keep happening? So it's something to think about. And then it says for a fix, it says if the buyer waives the appraisal contingency, but then can't pay for the house, sellers do have one strong consolation prize. In most cases, they get to keep the buyer's earnest money, which is the deposit offered up front to show they're serious about following through. So that's true. And if you do get an offer with no appraisal but high, no appraisal contingency but a high earnest money amount, I mean, it could be compelling. So do I recommend an appraisal? Yeah, Yeah, I do. The third reason is home buyers are racing to close the deal. And it says waiving contingencies such as a home inspection or appraisal generally turbocharges the closing process so you can close faster. And this is supposedly good for sellers except for one problem. What if you had hoped to buy a new home before moving out? You may suddenly find yourself in the same crazy seller's market as your poor buyers, and it may take you much longer than you ever imagined to buy a new house. So I've told people that it could be up to a year before you find the house that you want in this market. I tell buyers that it'd be a good idea to buy a house first and then sell your house if you can possibly do it because of this reason right here. And then for the fix, it says this is one area where home sellers would be smart to add a contingency of their own to their real estate deal. Most home sellers are realizing that they should include a contingency in the purchase agreement that they have a certain amount of time to locate a house of their own. I've seen home sellers who didn't include this only to be faced with moving in with family members until they can find a new home. I don't see that as likely. Most buyers today want to move in quickly. So I don't really see that as being an option. Now, that was the 3 on Realtor.com. I agreed with them all, except for I don't understand the strategy of why you would ever put your house up for sale without buying another one in this market. To me, it just doesn't make any sense. So let's go over 3 ways that I came up with that could be the same thing. The seller's market is actually bad for the home sellers and how to survive it. So the first thing I came up with was inflated prices usually mean that you are buying less house for more money when you move. So let's just say you're living in a 1,000 square foot house, and when you went to sell it, it was worth 200,000. Okay, but then you want to move into a 1,200 or a 1,400 square foot house, and it's now 350,000. It's like you didn't get anything. You didn't get any value there. So that's not good for home sellers if they got to buy another house. Number 2, it can be super stressful to sell your house in this market. While you might be getting a great deal, the offer could fall through. Whenever the house has to go back on market, there's always a risk that the next sale price is lower. So what I'm seeing now is many more houses are going under contract the first weekend and then coming back on market when the house doesn't appraise, or there's some disagreement. And anytime you have to put the house back on the market, you add stress to yourself and you add stress to the deal because you're never quite sure what you're going to get on the second go around. Now, I have gotten more on houses I've sold in the past. So say if we agreed to one price, those people backed out, and then we have another person come in, they put in an actual higher price than the original contract. I've had that happen, but it's still very, very stressful. And so the final thing I see is that getting someone to repair items that may take a long time because reputable contractors can be booked months in advance. So if you've agreed to make repairs, let's just say that you didn't waive the maybe that you didn't waive the inspection clause or the home there's some part of the home inspection where you have agreed to do some work. But if you've agreed to make repairs and you have a difficult time getting contractors to come to your house in time for a closing, so if you're closing in 30 days, it's tight already. And so what that usually means is if you actually get somebody out there in time, you're kind of at the mercy of their pricing structure. So you could be paying more for repairs than you normally would. And I think that's not good for the sellers. I don't think that's good for anybody. So what do you think? We don't often look at things like, from the seller perspective being a bad thing. When we talk about a hot market, we're always talking about the sellers. Never talk about the buyers. They're part of the deal too. But what do you think? Leave me a comment in the comment section below. Actually, read them. If you like my content, it'd be nice if you subscribed. I do a live stream every day at 9 a.m. St. Louis time. But yeah, come along. Let's have some fun. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening. Oh, one thing I wanted to say was podcast is doing really well. It's the one thing that I can hang my hat on. That's like, this is doing well. So thank you, all of you out there. I don't know who you are, but thank you. Thank you very much for listening to the podcast. I hope you're enjoying it. And it's been a ray of sunlight in a rather dreary technological expanse. Thank you for watching. Thank you for listening, and I will catch you on the next one.